Hello and welcome to Midday Report on TVP World. I'm Marie Cato. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is in the Netherlands to attend Victory Day celebrations alongside his Dutch counterpart. At the main ceremony in Wageningen, Tusk delivered the keynote address of today's celebrations. During his visit in the Netherlands, Tusk will meet with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof. Following the ceremony, the two officials will travel to Oosterbeek, where delegations from both countries will hold discussions. Then Prime Minister Donald Tusk will travel to Amsterdam, where he will attend an annual concert hosted by the Dutch royal couple. The final point of Tusk's agenda involves an evening boat tour upon invitation of King Willem Alexander.
Every year, as we all know, the Dutch government officials and local communities gather at the cemeteries where the Polish soldiers are buried to pay respect to their heroism and sacrifice. Numerous monuments record their combat trail, and the streets are named after the Polish liberators. I am deeply grateful to you for keeping their memory alive and for your firm commitment to commemorating them. Ladies and gentlemen, it is already the third year when we celebrate the anniversary of our victory over the Third Reich in the shadow of Russia's aggression against Ukraine. This makes all the difference as the war on the eastern border of the European Union lends a totally new context to those annual commemorations. In the face of the threats posed by Putin's Russia, we need to deepen our European and transatlantic lives, and we need genuine solidarity. Solidarity, which is the most important word in my personal political vocabulary. Genuine solidarity between people and nations that will prevent the evil from shaping our present and future. The time of Europe's carefree comfort, joyous unconcern is over. Today is the time of European mobilization around our fundamental values and our security.
Remains voted in the first round of presidential elections on Sunday, a rerun of the failed attempt in December last year. With voter turnout exceeding 50%, the country saw a tight battle between four contenders. Our correspondent in Bucharest, Paweł Trzaskowski, has the latest.
All is clear in Bucharest on Monday morning, with the official vote count in the first round of presidential elections in the country already concluded. And it will be George Simion and Nicu Jordan in the second round of the presidential elections on May the 18th. George Simion, who emerges victorious in the first round after receiving 40% of the votes in the final count. When the exit polls results were revealed, he was given about 30%, but this result did not account for the votes of Romanian diaspora that voted predominantly for Simion. Please listen to what Simion had to say upon learning the results of the exit polls.
I will surely remain committed to the one who should rightfully occupy the seat of president, the man in whom millions of you hoped. I speak here in front of the Romanian people. I will respect my word, because Romania needs his wisdom and vision, and because I don't want the power for myself. I am here for all of us to return the constitutional order.
George Simion is the leader of the right-wing Our party. He took part in the 2024 failed elections, however, with little success. But over these 5 months, he consolidated the votes of Romanian right. He got support from Călin Georgescu, the sole reason why the previous elections were cancelled. He also got support from Mateusz Morawiecki, the former prime minister of the Polish right-wing Law and Justice Party. And now he is going to face, in the second round of presidential elections, Nicu Jordan, a mayor of Bucharest who ran as an independent. However, yesterday, when the exit polls results were revealed, it was still inconclusive whether Nicu Jordan will make it to the second round. Please listen what he had to say upon learning the results.
We should wait the final results of the vote, which will come soon. And I would like to thank in advance to the representatives of all parties that are now inside the voting sections. And I would like to ask them to assure a correct counting from this moment, because we speak about the trust of the Romanians and our partners within the Romanian democracy. And in my opinion, this is a new beginning, and we hold responsibility for it.
Eventually, Nicu Jordan defeated Crin Antonescu by slim margin, less than 1%. Crin Antonescu, a veteran Romanian politician who returned from his political retirement to run as a candidate backed by the current governing coalition of Social Democrats and Liberals. And this result, Nicu Jordan in the second round beating Antonescu, might be interpreted as a voice of protests of Romanian voters against the current governing coalition. The main question remains now whether Antonescu will support one of the candidates in the presidential runoff and therefore transfer his votes to one of them. From Bucharest, Romania, for TVP World, I'm Paweł Trzaskowski.
Romanian voters reacted following the conclusion of the first round of the 2025 presidential election. Some said they expected far-right Eurosceptic candidate George Simion to secure the victory, while others placed their hopes on the runoff.
We expected the person who got first place to win, but the second place was uncertain. So probably, if it's what the people wanted, that's what happened. Most likely, the second round will also be who the people have wanted as well.
It was obvious who would get first place because a lot of votes were taken from Mr. Georgescu. I don't think it's a surprise for anyone that Simion got first place. It was expected that Crin Antonescu would not get second spot, not because of who he is as a person, but rather the ideology behind him and the National Liberal Party. Romanians are fed up with what happened over the past 10 years with a president from this party, and this is why he lost, not because of who he is.
I'm glad Nicu Jordan got into the race. That's the first conclusion for me. The second one is that the existing coalition in the government should take a step back. A big one. Third, we have to fight hard during the second round, that's for sure.
It all depends on the second phase of the election. This kind of thing happened in the past. I mean, one candidate to get 40% and in the second phase to lose the election. So the people should come and express their vote, and I'm confident that everything will be okay.
Romania's Prime Minister Marcel Ciolacu will reportedly offer to resign later on Monday after far-right Eurosceptic candidate George Simion topped Sunday's first-round presidential vote. The Bloomberg news agency reports that Ciolacu plans to tell government coalition partners that he's prepared to step down after the presidential election's second round on May 18th. The government-backed candidate, Crin Antonescu, was pushed into third place by Simion and second-placed independent candidate Nicu Jordan. Some commentators have suggested that Antonescu's poor showing reflected a vote against the ruling establishment. Moving on to the latest update on the Ukraine peace process. When asked if he was going to meet Vladimir Putin in Saudi Arabia, US President Donald Trump said he didn't know, although he did say he would be leaving for the country shortly. The American president also claims that the US delegation had meaningful conversations about Russia and Ukraine during the past few days.
I don't know. We haven't thought about it, but we'll be leaving for Saudi Arabia pretty soon. I have not thought about it. We've had some good conversations on Russia and Ukraine over the weekend, over the last few days actually, but we've had some very good conversations on Russia and Ukraine. There's a lot of hatred there, I will tell you, between the two parties and between even the generals. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of hatred, but we've had some very good discussions over the last few days.
Ukraine's military said on Monday, that the country was attacked overnight by 116 Russian drones and 2 ballistic missiles. Russian forces targeted the northeastern Sumy and eastern Donetsk regions with a series of strikes. The country's air force says it shot down 42 drones. Local media report that the 2 Iskander missiles used against the Sumy region were launched from Russia's neighboring Kursk region. The mayor of Konotop in the Sumy region said local infrastructure had been damaged in a wave of attacks. He confirmed there were no initial casualties or injuries. In a recent post on X, European Commissioner for Defence and Space Andrius Kubilius called on EU member states to increase their military support for war-torn Ukraine. In his opinion, the move would be a more convincing argument for Vladimir Putin to end the war.
If Putin isn't convinced by Trump to make peace, we could bring forward more convincing arguments for peace very quickly, by greatly increasing our military support to Ukraine. Until now, the EU and US provided around €40 billion a year of military aid to Ukraine. But we can spend that same amount procuring modern weapons in Ukraine, which would cost about half as much as those made in the EU or US. This would effectively double the volume of weapons Ukraine receives for the same €40 billion. Our support's real value would rise to €80 billion. New safe loans backed by the EU provide member states exactly this possibility, to use the loans for scaling up military support to Ukraine. That's how the formula peace through strength can truly work in practice. Safe loans mean strength for Ukraine.
In his first major interview since clinching a coalition deal, Germany's Friedrich Merz says he'll head to Paris and Warsaw right after taking office on May 8th. The goal, to present a united European front before engaging with Donald Trump. In an interview with Bild published on Sunday, Merz said it was important for Berlin to, quote, work together very well, very quickly with the French government and to collaborate on a par with Poland. He therefore announced that, as Chancellor, he would travel first to Paris and his next stop would be Warsaw. He emphasized that he will not travel to Washington until he's secured a common stance with France, Poland, the EU Commission and even the UK. He also took a firmer line on Ukraine, saying a country at war cannot join NATO or the EU, dampening Kyiv's hopes for a swift accession. The incoming German Interior Minister is skeptical of banning the far-right Alternative for Germany party, also known as the AfD. Last week, German intelligence classified the AfD as an extremist organization, which once again sparked a discussion whether the party should be banned altogether. Alexander Dobrindt, who's tapped to become Germany's next Interior Minister, says that an outright ban on the AfD remains unlikely. According to Dobrindt, Alternative for Germany doesn't meet the requirements for a ban. He highlighted that according to the constitutional guidelines, a political party must be working combatively and aggressively against democracy to be delegalized. This, Dobrindt said, is not the case with the AfD, adding that he's convinced that the party does not need to be banned, but, quote, should be governed away instead. Poland's population has decreased by nearly 130,000 compared to the previous year. This is according to the latest data from Statistics Poland.
The latest report by Statistics Poland shows that there are 129,819 fewer Poles in the national population registers than in the same period last year. The most significant population decline was reported in the Silesian province, while the smallest in Mazovia. When it comes to Polish cities, Poznań in the west, Bydgoszcz in the north, and Łódź in the central part of the country saw the largest population losses. In rural areas, the Polish population decreased by 32,315, with the largest drops reported in the Lublin, Łódź, Mazovian, as well as Holy Cross provinces.
U.S. President Donald Trump has directed his government to reopen and expand the penitentiary complex on Alcatraz Island. According to Trump, the redeveloped prison will house America's most ruthless and violent criminals. In a post on his social media platform, Truth Social, Trump said that for far too long, America has been plagued by violent and repeat criminal offenders. In the post, the president announced that he ordered the Bureau of Prisons, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security to enlarge and reopen Alcatraz Penitentiary. This move, however, might prove to be challenging and expensive. The prison was closed in 1963 due to deteriorating infrastructure, high costs of repairs, and difficulties supplying the island facility by boat. And this wraps up Midday Report at 2 p.m. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.